All right, looks like we are live. Make sure we're good here. Good. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another camera class. My name is Saxon. I'm your camera host. Some of you might know, some of you don't. We usually start these classes at 5:30. I'm a little late today. I had a customer that came in last minute, so I do apologize for that. But today is advanced photography, so let's get that started. All right. So let's review a little bit about what we've talked about all week. Make sure you guys are all in the know. As usual, I'm going to get this class started. If you have comments, questions, or concerns, there's a chat icon. You can chat in. I'll respond to them. Just keep the questions appropriate. Take a stand here so that way I can teach a little better. So, for anybody who's been attending the last couple classes, let's start in the very beginning. Intro to photography was the bare bones of cameras, right? We're learning how to use the camera, how the camera functions. We're learning the buttons, the layout, why it exists there. Then we talk about lenses, which for a lot of people can be a complicated or convoluted subject. Intermediate cameras. Now we're learning more about the actual manual control. So we're stepping away from automatic. We're now not learning the buttons as much as we're learning to use the camera as a tool. 90% of the photos that we take rely on the actual camera. 10% of it, I would say, relies on the editing. Now, people might say differently. Again, everyone has their opinion on it. Some people are big editors. Other people don't want to touch it. But the nice part with photography is that you have it there and it exists if you'd like to use it. That being said, with photography as a whole, the next step in photography is the advanced editing of the photo. Is getting into more of the nitty-gritty parts of photo that are important. Not only that, but we're going to talk about, getting your content creation off the ground. What does it look like to get advanced accessories for your camera that might be over your head, but might be needed for your business or for your next photography goals or videography goals? And then also, too, we're going to talk about taking a good photo and kind of getting into that of just the very bare bones of both portrait and landscape. From there, taking that information, blurring it together, you can start to really take good photos. But if you keep these rules in mind, you'll probably have a better chance taking a more professional-like or quality photo. Lastly, again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, chat, keep it appropriate, and I will answer them live here on the video for you. I had one student come in at the beginning, but they had some questions about some very entry-level things, so I made sure I answered that for them before we got this started. So again, sorry for being late. But let's jump into it. Let's start with tips for taking great photos. Why this matters to me so much is because in order for us to be a good photographer, we need to be able to take good photos. So very bare bones, simple rules that I follow, but I also break at times. And that's something that I want to make sure we all understand. These rules are not meant to be followed to a T. There are going to be plenty of times where you taking a photo can be better by doing something else. And that's kind of the main point that I hope we can get to as we're talking. Portrait photography is going to be the start. Portrait photography is all about one thing and one thing only, the subject matter. We don't care about the background, we don't care about everything else. So the first rule in portrait photography, and this goes for taking pictures of items too, not just people or actual portraits of people or dogs or animals or whatever it is. Filling the frame. Take away the negative space, crop out things that aren't needed. Filling the frame will do that for you. The next big rule that I have are eyes in the top third of the photo. Think about a human. The eyes are located on the top of their head. So keeping that in the top portion of the photo is a good idea. Naturally for us humans, we follow that in a certain way. So by keeping the photo in the top third section of it, you're helping the human brain kind of understand and dissect the photo as they start from top to bottom. And you can really see her eyebrows and eyes hit the top of the top third. And if we divide this into three sections, we have a top, top, middle, and bottom. Again, why does that matter? Because our eyes naturally travel through the photo. We might as well make it a little easier for people to see, to travel with it, so it's easier to break down. Sometimes we can't just get the eyes on the top third, but we can get the eyebrows. And that still works really well as a photography method or practice of portraits, keeping the eyes in the top third of the photo. The other way you can look at this is, let's say we're taking pictures of like a water bottle or something simple like a statue. If we can keep the upper portion of whatever that object is in the top part of our photo, naturally we have an easier way of following it downwards. That goes for both landscape and for portrait. Focus in on the eyes. Again, we're relying heavily on the portrait side of things at the current moment. And we're talking mainly about eyes, eyebrows. But it's amazing that the newer technology in the cameras has the ability for us to just focus on the eyes. And it has a really good eye tracking and eye sensor technology. So I highly recommend that as a beginning photographer who's practiced and learned the manual controls and now wants to up their photography game, one of the best things you could do is focus on just those eyes. Get on their level. When it comes to photography as a whole, when we're shooting photos of people in general, it's easy for us to take pictures from our hip or from our perspective, right? Because we are a certain height or a certain everything. That being said, when it comes to taking pictures of kids or people that are smaller than you, let's just say, I'm a 6'1" guy, so for me, I'm usually in the upper height kind of category. Sometimes I have to dip my camera down a little bit lower to get a better shot. In this case, while this is a good picture, while it's fun to show friends and family, it's an easy one to take. If you want to make your portfolio or you want to bring your photography to a more professional level, get on their level. Drop down a little bit while shooting the photo. Shoot from the hip a little bit more. Forget about your height and look at your subject matter or the portrait's height that you're trying to take. A lot of the times it'll help in the regards to getting the perfect shot, or a more professional shot, I should say. So any shot can be perfect. Following in with the eyes, again, you can look and see that the child's eyebrows are in the top third of the photo, and the girl in the background that's slightly blurred out, her eyebrows and eyes are also in the top third of the photo. Now we've talked about breaking the photo down into top, middle, bottom, but we can also break it down from right, middle, and left. By doing so, we create what's called the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds might not seem that important, might not care about it, but the rule of thirds is simple. If you have something crossing in those dividing lines, those red sections, you will absolutely get a more impactful photo for the viewer. That doesn't mean the subject matter becomes more dramatic or brooding or mysterious or can invoke certain emotions. It can. That's based on your photography skills and the subject matter. But what scientifically is proven from eye movement and tracking is that those red circles, if the image hits or an important part of the image is on there, the gaze is guided towards that section, it stimulates the brain in a certain type of way. So by doing this, you're just following a pattern that has been systematically proven by scientists and by people in the field who have studied these photos and anything else. And I have some examples to show of what I mean by the rule of thirds. But again, you have a top, a middle, and a bottom, a right, a middle, and a left, and then you have 4 intersecting points that hit between all of those. In this first photo, we have the surfer. The surfer hits beautifully on the one side of the line. His shadow then drops down, hits the other part. They could have just hit the one rule of thirds, and that would have looked like an interesting photo. This goes back to that first slide we looked at about filling the frame. You really wouldn't want to fill the frame in a picture like this. Gorgeous sunset, the sky is red and orange and yellow. You have the nice reflection and symmetry that's coming off the sand. You can see the water in the background, other people walking. This dramatically looks like a wonderful photo, but also colorfully and just composure-wise looks like a really nice picture. On the left side of the photo, you can see the girl, her shoulder, her ankle hit perfectly at the rule of thirds. And again, similar idea. A brooding, mysterious picture. The skyline is smoky and cloudy. We have the water as well, too. And we're on the beach. Again, similar kind of vibes, but you get where I'm coming from with this. Moving from there, we have these two we have a portrait of our mom and dad, brother and sister. Both of them are hitting the rule of thirds nicely. A little bit off symmetry, but it still is a nice, beautiful photo. This is an easy one that you can take of your family or of others' families, again, if you're trying to get more into a photography game. But they're using a little bit of depth perception to make the parents look smaller and the kids bigger. This helps even out the height. Puts focus on the kids too. It's a little bit of they're getting on their level like I just talked about. But again, you're hitting the rule of thirds, you're making balance, you're creating a really nice, clean image. And lastly, to spell it out a little bit more, I use Jim here to help. He's hitting the rule of thirds on the right-hand side. Eyebrows are in the top third of the image. And on top of that too, while we didn't fill the frame and cut out the gutter of this photo, like the tree and the shades, in this case, the office or the show uses this so that way you can see where exactly they're being filmed, which would have been the conference room at Dunder Mifflin. All right, now we've talked a little bit about portrait photography. Let's talk more about landscape. It's the second and most popular style that I see here. Typically, the customers we get in here are taking everyday street photography shots, whether that's buildings or landscape, or they're taking portrait product shots, whether that's people, items for sale, or maybe items for business, it could be anything. Those are typically the two categories you're going to see. It's portrait and landscape. Landscape photography relies heavily on horizon, symmetry, and balance. When we look at this, the horizon line is where the water meets the mountains and the sky. The background is our sky and our mountains. The foreground is the body of water in front of it. Again, we can see that here. A really beautiful landscape picture. There's symmetry between the water and the mountains. You have a little bit of snow in the front to know the ground, and the sky is beautiful but full. Now, balance and symmetry. Again, talking a little bit more about this. The lightning and the thunder that's above the photo is not symmetrical, but it is dramatic and it adds flair to the photo. Where we do have balance and symmetry, though, is in the ground and the tree. The tree is perfectly in the middle, and each row of lavender plants, from what I can tell, run straight toward the tree. Obviously, you have some editing here that helps the color, helps things like the lightning and the clouds stand out really nice and strongly. But you also have a lot of just natural ability in this photo of taking something that's clean and looks good. In that same boat, we have this landscape photo. We have the trees in the center, trees on both the right and left side, a beautiful crescent of mountains in the background. And then you have the water, which is completely still, not a ripple there, that then shows the exact same reflection in the photo. Balanced but symmetrical. Landscape is all about taking balance and symmetry and mixing them together. It's remembering where the horizon line is and making sure you get the correct angles to show things off like this. This photo isn't hard to take, but you need to be in the right place and at the right time in order to get it. And lastly, I put this photo in there. I did like this one. You have the road that's winding down. You can see where the next part of the road tees off, but you can really see the difference between a background horizon, but a really far horizon line, where it's all the way almost to the top of the image before you get to what looks to be the background. And all of the information in the front is the foreground. Symmetry-wise, that yellow line cuts this photo into two perfectly. Is it the prettiest of looking photos? Probably not, compared to what we just looked at. But is it an interesting photo? I would say so. A couple more tidbits on here. The sun is your friend. The sun helps create light and brings in the element of photography to what it is known today. Without light, we have no photos. The sun at your back can be great, but opening yourself up to the sun a little bit more helps cast more light onto your image. The bad and the better photo, we can see on the better side, the fish is held outwards, not in front of his face. It's definitely turned out the fish. The fish is naturally more slimy, more shiny, has texture to it. The light bounces off of that and hits his face a little bit more. Mix that in with a better ISO as well too, and naturally you're able to get something that has better lighting, better quality to it, where you can actually see what's going on versus how dark and bad the first top photo is. Let's look at the difference now between JPEG and RAW. So we talked a little bit about photos, taking good pictures, simple stuff, but things that I think if you could think about a little bit more as you're shooting, it helps. Now let's talk about photos, photo editing. Before we get into that, JPEG versus RAW. Why does it matter? Why do you care? RAW files, as you can see in this image, look muted. There looks to be no color. JPEG shows more color, a little bit more depth, but still seems flat. And the process RAW brings all of that together. Now, what's the difference between a process RAW and a RAW is you. You, the photo editor and photographer, have the ability now to edit and change the RAW photo, so that way it looks better than JPEG and brings out more detail and depth of field in the image. How does it do that? A JPEG is a compressed file. It's a smaller file size, 2 to 6 megabytes. Lower color bit rating, so about 8. It can be edited on any photo editor. You can always edit a JPEG. And it can be transferred faster too. JPEGs are limited though because they're smaller files. They don't have a lot going on. But if you aren't someone who's into editing photos, a JPEG is probably just fine for you. But why would you want a RAW file still over a JPEG, even if you like to edit photos? Well, RAW is an uncompressed file, meaning it's a larger file size, 12 to 16 megabytes. Has a higher color bit rating too, 12 bytes to 16 bytes. It can be edited as RAW on some softwares, but most likely has to be converted into another file. But if you are a RAW edit photographer, you're a raw photographer in general, then this shouldn't be that big of a deal, because at this point you can edit the raw files to show more color, depth of field, better lighting, just better image quality overall. RAW versus JPEG is really a personal choice. I personally shoot with both because sometimes I don't want to edit the photo. I like the quality and the color and everything that comes right out of the camera body. But sometimes you need to have that raw processed properly in order to make sure you bring out all of this amazing information. Sometimes that color, the depth of field, those types of things are important in photography because they really can show the beauty of your photo or of whatever the subject matter is a lot better than a standard JPEG can. So let's go through and talk about what it means to basic edit a photo, whether it's JPEG or RAW. What I want to make sure you understand and I get across to you is that the RAW file is going to have more information that you can get out of it than the standard JPEG. Here are some images to see the difference between the before and the after of editing your photos. Typically what you'll see is lighter photos rather than dark. You'll see more color correction, more pop, more separation between subject matter, whether that's foreground and background, or two subject matters in the same photo. If you're someone looking to edit photos, RAW is definitely the way to go. And if you're someone who wants to understand the basics, remember one thing as I go through this. Just because you change one part of the edit doesn't mean that that's the final thing that you're changing. You might have to go back through and change and reevaluate as you're editing. But this is a great way to gauge and just kind of start off. Here's some software editors you might be interested in. Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Lightroom are two of the biggest ones. Capture One Pro, Corel Paint Shop Pro are both really good and useful ones too. You don't pay monthly subscriptions for it. There's another one that I've been recently put onto. I haven't personally used it that much. Affinity Photo. Affinity is a good one that I keep hearing about. A few of my reps have told me that they really like it. Again, everyone's a little bit different on what they like and what they don't like. But if you're someone who's interested in editing photos, you definitely want to watch some videos, familiarize yourself with it, figure out which one's best for you and your photography style, and also your budget. Let's start simple. Crop and clean your image is the first step. Start by straightening the alignment of the photo. After that, go through and make sure that you have that you do not have any excess negative or dead space. Spot cleaning should also occur at this time. Adjust your white balance. White balance does not refer to exposure. Rather, it refers to color of your overall composition. You'll have less to play with when you're shooting in standard JPEG versus RAW, which is what we just talked about. But some editors will have presets you can control and change, and others will do temperature and tint. And you might have it where some do both. It's usually a LUT can be a preset, and then you'll have things like your temperature and tint, which are more controllable dials. Again, every editor is a little different. Let's talk about exposure and contrast. Exposure plays on the brightness and darkness of a photo. Beware of making a photo too bright because you can get a muted or muddled look to your photo. Whereas contrast plays with dark and light tones. High contrast makes the image stark and very dark and very light sections. Low contrast will make things look too flat or washed out. Goes always to aim for something in the middle. Now, within that same ballpark, histograms can be talked about. What is a histogram and how to use it? The diagram that's on your screen right now is probably the closest thing to a perfect histogram, right? The idea is that a histogram isn't always needed when editing photos, but it's a great way to figure out how the light gets distributed through the photo. Here's how you read it. Your highlights and your shadows should be two of the most minor parts of your photo. Too many shadows, you got a very dark image. Too many highlights, it's completely washed out. So what's the king? The midtones. The midtones is your middle ground of everything. If you look at a black and white photo, or take your photo as a whole and convert it to black and white, you'll understand, right? Gray tones, that middle tone is going to be the high point. Then you have your areas of black and white, but nothing's truly black and truly white. Except, there can be, but mainly you'll see midtones. Now, is that to say that this is needed? No, but it could be a good tool for you, and maybe it's something that you actually enjoy using when taking photos. You can see on the left-hand side the picture of what it looks like to be overexposed or underexposed, as well as properly exposed. However, on the right-hand side, those are examples of histograms that aren't necessarily the perfect one, but the image still comes out beautifully and shows a lot of amazing qualities, contrast, and color. Again, you can use this as a tool to help you to know your middle ground when shooting. You don't have to use this as a concrete and needed section. However, though, it's a great learning tool, especially if you're just starting photography and you're looking for a way to learn a little bit more about how light works, especially when it comes to exposure and contrast. Color vibrancy and saturation. Vibrancy will increase or decrease the color intensity in brighter colors throughout your image, whereas saturation will increase or decrease colors throughout the image evenly. And the last thing I like to do as I'm closing down and finishing up my photo editing journey is to adjust the sharpness. Now, I will say this, before I go through and adjust my sharpness of my image, I like to make sure that the image as a whole is where I want it to be completely. And I said in the beginning, I'll say it again now that we've changed up viewers on here as well too. You're gonna go back through after editing and make changes. There's no one time where you sitting there and editing your photo is going to make it perfect the first time through. You might need to go back through, adjust and change and do new things in order to make it perfect. So don't be afraid that even when you get to saturation and your overall composition or contrast, don't be afraid to go back and maybe spot clean a little bit more. Change up the overall white balance. Play with things like exposure again. Because whatever it takes to get the perfect photo, you want to do that. You want to make sure you do it properly before now going in and changing the sharpness. Because it's one of the last things you do after you edit the other parts of your image. Sharpness is going to bring out the definition and the depth of field within there. Too much, though, will create a halo effect around the image, and it just won't look right or good. So keep that in mind as you're going through with this. This is more of a fun one, but I like to share this with you guys. Be proud of the photos you take. Be excited that you're into photography. It's a cool thing. Almost everybody I know just takes photos on their phone. So for those of us who have real cameras, we're shooting, we enjoy the act of photography. Let's enjoy the work that we have. Let's display or print the images that we have. Now you can do that by purchasing frames, printing images out, putting them into them. Those are the common sizes you'll see for most. But a digital frame exists too. These digital frames are great. They have unlimited photo storage, and they're great gifts to give to. If you want to get one for grandma, put it up in her house, share the images of you, the grandkids, with her. That might be a great option. If you want one for yourself to display your home images, your vacation photos, your family images, a lot of these have unlimited photo storage space. Put as many on there as you like. Things like this are great to have, great resources. I'd highly, highly recommend them. Next thing we have is videography. Within filming videos or content, your work will go through three main phases. Pre-production, the initial steps to begin making your project. Production, the main phase of capturing clips or films to use. And then post-production, putting it all together to make your final piece. Things to keep in mind when you're getting ready to film or when you're about to film. Video resolution. There's a few different ones. There's standard definition, high definition, 4K, and 8K video. Ratios. Now it's the ratio of which your screen will look on the screen. So again, you can go the full 4:3. That's your standard TV size. You can also go 3:2. Give a little bit of gutter space, a little more black on there. 1:1, the square. That's great for Instagram, Facebook, for social medias. And then a 16:9, which is going to be more of a vintage style video. Think about back in the day. The way I like to look at 16:9 is Oppenheimer. If you saw the movie, there were plenty of scenes where the aspect ratio would switch from your whole screen to a 16:9. That's what this is. It could be a cinematic choice. It could be something that you choose to do, but it's a fun one, and again, everyone's a little different. FPS, frames per second. Those are how many frames are in the image. If you're doing just standard TV, like the news, for example, they're using 12 to 24 frames a second. You get into some movies and some higher-end stuff, they typically are using 60 frames a second. And anytime you see a slow-motion movie, they're always, if not using more, using at least 120 frames, possibly more, to deliver the visual effects that you're seeing and the clarity that you're seeing in those movies. Again, we're not movie makers. We're just trying to make video for content, for our businesses, for our startup, for whatever it is that we're doing. Let's see. Sorry about that, guys. My laptop died on me middle of that, but it looks like we are still good to go. All right, let's get back into this. Sorry about that. My laptop literally died on me. The charger that I had hooked up, I guess, wasn't doing the trick. So that's the difference with the frames per second, and then ratio, and then video resolution. So let's move on to the next one. We only have a few more to go. The must-haves. When we look at everything, when filming and making any kind of content, you should be focusing on three things initially. That's camera quality. So
having a camera that shoots appropriately for the content that you're trying to make. It doesn't have to be movie quality, but it has to work for you or your project / page. Lighting. Choosing a lighting method that works well for you. Now, this again goes into it. You can use lots of different lighting techniques, and we're going to talk about the one that I think is one of the most popular when it comes to studio, but there are a lot of other methods out there that might work better for you. Audio quality as well too. Microphones, shotgun mic, on-camera mic, wireless mic, like a lav mic, all of that stuff exists as well. So here's an example for lighting. Key lights, backlights, fill lights. These are the proper terms you're going to hear for more of a studio or professional setup. This is going to be, again, what professionals or studio settings are using in order to get whatever quality it is that you want. Alternative lights. You have on-camera flashes, on-camera LED lights and light blocks. You also can use a ring light. Those are popular methods for photography that give lighting and a little bit more color to the photo you're trying to take. Microphones, in-camera mics, on-camera mics, wireless mics, boom mics, and lav mics are all great options too for getting sound. Stabilizing your shot, getting something that holds your shot down and grounds it a little bit better is important too. Monopods, still photo tripod ball head joint, and video tripods. All great ways to stabilize your shot. All are a little unique and different in their own regards. And this is one of the last slides I have, but gimbals, stabilization. Single-handed gimbals, two-handed gimbals, body gimbals, stabilize your vests. Again, the idea behind it is we want to just get the shot, freeze it, make sure that we're getting a good handle of the image itself. This is great for run and gun, this is great for movement, anything that might cause the video to be blurry or pixelated or just not up to snap to what we want. Guys, that's all I have for you. So for the hour I could teach. Next week is Beyond the Traditional Camera. It's the last Thursday of every month. That we're going to be talking about next week, which is then going to follow up with the start of July, which will then begin the brand new classes. July 3rd being our first one, and so on and so forth. I think with the video dying out on me and my computer kind of freezing and dying, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions for me. So I will end the class there. Next week, guys, Beyond the Traditional Camera, we're going to get into the next side of things, which will be GoPros, drones, camcorders, the next step in the photography evolution for those who want to advance past just what they have currently. If you guys have any questions for me, anything like that, feel free to email me or give me a call at my number and email listed below. But other than that, guys, that's all I have for you. So thanks for joining. Thanks for attending. My name is Saxon. I'm your photography teacher here at Apt Electronics. And I'll see everybody next Thursday for our final class of the month, the Beyond the Traditional Cameras. Have a great day. Enjoy the